According to Buddha, realizing the underlying causes of suffering is the first step toward achieving bliss. Buddha's concern for suffering has led some to label him as a pessimist, yet this is missing the mark. He may deliver the awful news of our suffering, but he also recommends a proactive course of action. In actuality, he is a skilled physician. The Buddhist community, or Sangha, is the nurse who comforts us and demonstrates to us how to take the medicine, and the medicine in this metaphor is the Buddha's Dharma, or teachings of wisdom and compassion. However, the only way to heal the condition is for the patient to adhere to the doctor's recommendations and the Eightfold Path, which is centered around mental control. Buddhism views this treatment as a daily practice of conscious thinking and action that we ourselves may verify scientifically through our own experience, rather than as a straightforward medication to be taken orally. Naturally, the most well-known technique in this practice is meditation, although despite what many people think it has nothing to do with distancing oneself from the outside world. Instead, it is a technique for teaching the mind to live in the present moment, which is when we can find the most serenity rather than the past or future. Buddha. A brief overview. Siddhartha Gautama of Shakya, popularly known as the Buddha, was born in what is now Nepal, close to the Indian border in the late 6th and early 5th century BCE. Although there are many myths about how he was created and born, most people can agree on the essential details of his life. The Buddha was brought up in opulence and was born into a wealthy royal family. One day, in spite of his father's best efforts to keep him safe from the harsh realities of life, he stepped outside the castle walls and came across the aged, the sick, and the dead. He was worried by each of these encounters and began to wonder about the purpose of life, its fleeting nature, and its joys. Following this, he met an ascetic who chose to live a life devoid of worldly pleasures. His eyes gleamed with joy despite having none of the comforts of life. Buddha was inspired by these eye-opening encounters to give up his luxurious life in pursuit of a deeper, meaningful life. When Buddha was engaged in severe self-denial practices, he came to understand the concept of the middle path, which is moderation that is similar to Aristotle's golden mean. He had gone through periods of intense pleasure and severe deprivation in his life, but he discovered that neither extreme led to profound insight. Then, behind a Bodhi tree, he engaged in deep concentration, meditation, and attained enlightenment. In order to assist people in achieving transcendent bliss and mental tranquility by the understanding and application of what is known as Buddhism, he started teaching the Four Noble Truths to others. The Eightfold Path to Happiness and the Four Noble Truths are the problem and the solution. Monks, these Four Noble Truths are unwavering and nothing less. That's why they are known as Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths are as follows, which Buddha imparted to his disciples. 1. Dukkha, mental illness or anguish, means life. 2. The source of dukkha is yearning. 3. Dukkha is eradicable. 4. The Eightfold Noble Path. The Eightfold Path is the path that leads to the eradication of dukkha. Buddhism holds that ignorance and erroneous knowledge are the ultimate causes of dukkha. Mental dysfunction is more in line with the original definition of dukkha, which is typically regarded as suffering. Houston Smith describes dukkha in a similar way, comparing it to a shopping cart that we try to steer from the wrong end, or to bones that have been out of joint. All movements, thoughts, and creation that come out of such a mental imbalance can never be fully satisfying. To put it briefly, we can never be totally content. Through mindful thoughts and deeds, the Eightfold Path removes dukkha from our brains and our lives, offering a methodical and practical route out of ignorance. The three routes related to the field of mental development are particularly significant to the enjoyment we can find in equanimity, or peace of mind, even if the system is presented as a whole. If a sensible person leaves a tiny pleasure and looks toward a huge pleasure, they may see a great pleasure by doing so. Buddhism seeks happiness by achieving mental serenity via effort and wisdom. According to Buddhist teachings, equanimity, or mental tranquility, is attained by severing oneself from the dukkha-causing cycle of desiring. You can therefore liberate yourself and reach a condition of transcendent joy and well-being by reaching a mental state where you can separate from all of life's passions, desires, and wants. As stated in the Dhammapad's first stanza, according to Buddha, mental illness originates in the mind. As the mental attributes that will lead to nirvana, the ultimate reality, the Buddha urges disciples to seek tranquility and insight. As previously stated, achieving these traits is thought to be facilitated by the Eightfold Path in its entirety. Specifically, the mental talents and instruments utilized to attain happiness are the domains of mental cultivation, which comprise right effort, right awareness, and right concentration. The mind is like a wild horse, as the Buddha once said. He advises practicing right effort in the Eightfold Path by first avoiding and then purging our brains of unwholesome, negative thoughts. After that, practicing positive thinking helps one perfect a healthy, peaceful frame of mind. This continuous work fosters a mental state that is advantageous for practicing awareness and focus, meditation. Being mindful. One of the most important Buddhist teachings, mindfulness, has found its way into contemporary psychology and psychotherapy, as well as popular culture, as seen by Ellen Langer's understanding of the concept. The Buddha believed that in order to stop and smell the roses, or to perceive things as they truly are, it is essential to develop proper awareness in all facets of life. He promoted acute awareness and attentiveness to everything by utilizing the 4 pillars of mindfulness. 1. Thinking about the body. 2. Thinking about emotions. 3. Thinking about mental states. 4. Considering occurrences. To put it succinctly, mindfulness is the practice of living in the present with an attitude of curiosity and openness to every experience. One can liberate themselves from desires and cravings, which frequently confine us to regrets from past or worries about the future, by practicing appropriate mindfulness. Appropriate focus and meditation. A monk who is dedicated to live in a bare cell because he has a calm mind experience and otherworldly joy in realizing the true law more and more clearly. A mental discipline called right concentration seeks to change your thinking. Right concentration is fundamental to Buddhist theory and practice. It is the central activity of meditation. Buddha says that there are 4 dhyana stages of deeper concentration. 1. A state of joy is attained during the initial stage of focus, during which mental obstacles and impurities vanish. 2. In the second stage, mental activity stops and happiness is all that's left. 3. The state of happiness itself starts to fade in the third stage. 4. All feelings, including bliss, vanish in the last stage and are replaced with complete serenity of mind, which the Buddha compared to a more profound state of contentment. Gratitude. The followers of Gautama are constantly alert and full of compassion, both during the day and the night. There are several accounts of the Buddha's kindness and regard for all life. He was a truth teller and a compassionate teacher because he believed that one's own pleasure was correlated with the happiness of others, human and otherwise. His life and death both serve as examples of such a lesson. It was reported during the Buddha's lifetime that he eschewed nirvana in order to impart the transcendental secrets to others. The legend states that a disciple unintentionally poisoned the Buddha. He assured the disciple that the food he had just consumed was one of the 2 most fortunate meals he lay dying. The first meal was the one he had to break his fast under the Bodhi tree, and the second meal of rotting mushrooms was the meal that would lead him to nirvana. In summary, achieving a more profound level of happiness necessitates a courageous examination of a world in which dukkha, or mental illness, is the norm. Buddhism is a philosophy and way of life that deeply examines the mind and all of its misconceptions, desires, and delusions. Fortunately for us, Buddhism also offers a path out of these mental traps via mindful practice and higher consciousness. The ideas in the Buddhist teachings suggest to a comprehensive engagement with experienced reality, which may explain why Buddhism is so profoundly full of happiness despite the seemingly dismal view of reality. Paradoxically, transcendent bliss can only be attained via such an engagement with reality, the universe, and oneself. Equanimity, a profound sense of contentment and well-being, can be attained with the right understanding and application in day-to-day living.